Hey guys, and welcome back on weltsound. Today it's time to talk about Indira Paganotto, one of the rising stars on Charlotte de Witt's label KNTXT. She's known for blending psytrance and techno together. Do you know somebody who does it? Except for her, it's crazy. Her sound is so unique, and we want to have a look today at the way she's working on her bass lines. If you want to learn how to make rolling bass lines like psytrance but put it in a nice techno context, then you're right. First of all, let's get this out of the room. The kick drums she's using are kind of psytrance style as well. So instead of typical 909s, we might hear some pitch envelope kick drums, which is a little different approach to making especially kind of making the transient of a kick drum. And you can do this in any synthesizer. I took some samples for this video, and maybe I might do a video in the future, but you can try this out for yourself. It's not that hard. Just take a sine wave in a synthesizer, put an envelope on the pitch, make it very short, and play around with that. You will very, very soon hear what I mean when I say this is a psytrance kick, right? So let's start on Himalaya. This track is on 149 BPM, which is very fast, and we're playing A sharp notes here, and we want to have a look at the patch, but first let's listen. So you can see nothing special happening here in the sound, and that's the essence, right? We want to have a very simple and very steady sound. So we don't want to have two oscillators, we don't want them to be detuned, because that would already make a lot of phasing and kind of kill a little bit the transients. Instead, we want only one oscillator, no warping, no unison, nothing. It's just all about the envelope and the filter here, right? So you gotta find the right settings to get the right tone, right? The right tonal character for your bass line. And a very, very important trick that a lot of people don't know and which kind of kills the bass line or which doesn't make it steady enough is the phase and the random phase parameter. You can see I put the random phase here, I put it to 0, which means that every time a note is played, the phase is starting to at the point I set it, right? So for example, if I set it to 90 degree, it will start here every time. And that's important because if we have random phase activated, the wave will start at a random point for every hit. And this will make the sound feel a little less steady. For some sounds like leads, pads, whatever, that might be nice. But for other sounds, like this bass line, for example, that the more steady and the more kind of robotic it is, the better, right? We don't want this random thing to happen. So what we do is we put random to 0 and we find a spot in the phase of our waveform that sounds nice. And when I move this now while listening, you will actually notice that it sounds a little different all over. And this is kind of a secret trick. Not a lot of people know this, right? So let's check this out if we can hear this. So I think maybe around here even sounded the best. So you can experiment with that. You shouldn't get too, confused and focus on that. Just find something that feels right and go with that. But keep in mind, random phase for bass lines might not be the right choice. For the second track, that is Takashi, we go almost 10 BPM lower, so we're on 138 now, and you can see there's an F sharp playing, and I want to show you real quick that this is exactly the same patch. There's nothing changed. The only difference that you can see is here I have an 18 dB per octave filter and here I have a 24 dB per octave filter. So it's just a little more, less higher frequencies. And the envelope's the same, everything's the same. The only difference I made is in the FX section. So I want to show you this real quick. And this is obviously shaping the sound, right? So this is the cherry on top, kind of. In the first example, Himalaya, I chose the hard clip distortion and made it very strong, but put a filter on there. I did this because the filter is kind of low and the envelope doesn't push it too high. So I wanted to have more harmonics in the mid bass area, right? So I chose a very, very strong distortion unit. While in the next example that we want to have a listen to first, you can hear the tape saturation. It has just such a unique sound, right? And that was much more fitting here. Don't get confused by the compressor, by the way. This is only for getting a little more gain. And yes, the rest is the same about the sound. So you can see that this 16th note bass line works in almost every kind of tempo. You could even, and this is just for, you know, for maybe having a little laugh, but we can put this on 115 BPM. And it's also cool. It has this kind of, you know, kind of slowly rolling vibe. And yeah, it's just a very, very strong pattern. And keep in mind that you can also do it like this with, for example, less velocity to make a sidechain already by linking the velocity to the amp or maybe even the filter. You can also do it like this and then sidechain it, like for to make the most simple patch. I just did it like this to leave an empty space for the kick. I think that's a kind of very, very clean way to do it. But there might be situations where you want the bass line rolling, but no kick should be involved, right? And at this point, you maybe want to have all the hits because otherwise it would sound a little off, maybe. So keep that in mind. As we move to our last example, which is Cobra. Cobra is again up on 149, so let's hunt those BPMs and check out what happened in Cobra. Alright, this is completely different than the other ones. We're not doing 16th notes anymore. So you can see this is a sharp again, but only on the offbeat 8th. So this is placed like a hi-hat basically, right? The offbeat hi-hat. So if we have a look at the sound patch, well, that shouldn't really surprise you by now, but again, almost the same, right? Just a little different settings on the filter again. I took the 18 dB filter, I chose a different setting for the cutoff, and the resonance is a little higher in this one. And here I took the tube instead of the tape. It was just a matter of listening, right? Don't get too confused about this. As I said before, you should always try to listen carefully and choose whatever feels right to you, right? Don't overthink it too much. And yeah, what's interesting about those 8th note bass lines is that you can have a very long kick that almost goes, yeah, up to an eighth of a note. And then you have the bass line pumping between the kick hits. And the difference in the kind of energy state is that the 16th notes kind of roll very fast, but don't give too much focus on the kick drum, while what she did in Cobra gives a lot of more focus to the kick drum and bounces a little more. So it's not this kind of rolling, energized feeling, but more like a heavy bouncing. And that's the 3 ways that Indira has used her psytrance bass lines in her latest KNTXT EP. As always, you get something for free. This time it's all the kick samples and all the bassline patches that I've used to rebuild Indira Paganotto's sound. So just head down to the description and get your stuff. And if you want anything else, if you want to know more about her sound, if you want to know about any other artist's sound, or just any other topic that you want us to cover, just let us know in the comments and we will do it. So I would say see you next time, and until then, have fun making music.